Welcome to Torchbearers by College Esports News. My name is Kenneth Christina, and on this show, we talk with those carrying the flame of college esports at programs across the continent to learn from their expertise in a particular segment of our vast ecosystem. In this episode, I sat down with Parker Lyte Lewis to get the inside scoop on how he built last season's dominant Redbird Overwatch roster as head coach and what his perspective is heading into this coming season. It's interesting to hear his mentality towards recruiting and how the core values he integrated into his team helped prevent player burnout. Here's my conversation with Parker. Well, Parker, welcome to Torchbearers. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Kenneth. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in there. Uh, we're recording this. It's the end of the day, but maybe you're thinking about this for tonight, thinking about this for tomorrow morning. What is top of your mind? Like first thing you've got to do, work related, as you come back in.
Well, I think it changes every day because a lot of my responsibilities are outside of Overwatch. I also have an administrative responsibility as well. And so recently I've been taking a lot of initiative on leading community service outreaches. And so we're just working with local middle schools and high schools in the Blono area in order to help ISU esports get better involved with the community and also just promote esports in general as a field that people can actually go into and it's a viable industry for students and sort of build a pipeline that parents and older generations can see that this is a viable field to go into. And um, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Obviously, there's the part of the job that says the job title, and then there's the other duties as assigned, right?
Yeah, other duties
That's
as
included
assigned.
there,
Yeah.
right? So I want to start off as well with what's your story? How did you like even starting from the very beginning? How did you get involved with video games, let alone transition over to an esports role, and then end up where you are now?
Yeah, so I think myself, as well as a lot of other gamers, started when they were very young. The first game I remember playing was Looney Tunes Back in Action on the GameCube when I was like 5. And I played that game so many times, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. But over time, I kind of just progressed, Call of Duty, Battlefield on the Xbox, and all that other stuff. And eventually, I got a PC and I was 15, I believe, so I could play pro in a game called Evolve. Some people might have heard about it. It was like a flop, unfortunately, but it was really, really fun, and I was one of the few people who enjoyed it. And there was like a very passionate fan base that stayed around for it for a while. So there was like a small competitive scene that I was a part of. But from that game, I transitioned to Overwatch in 2016, and the open beta is whenever I first started playing. And I think I just got relatively good at it very, very quickly. I remember, I think I was 17 when it was season 4 when I got top 10 for the first time. I got 4650, and I was like, okay, this is something that I think I can actually do seriously and take seriously. And so then eventually a team was just looking on the leaderboards for Roadhog players because like those I played Roadhog and Genji were my two best characters at the time, and that was like kind of like the meta that you needed at the time because this was like during 6v6 open queue. So I got recruited onto that team and just started competing from there. And then eventually I made my way into Contender Season 0, and um, the rest was history. I remember whenever I was 18 after competing on Contenders for about a year that Maryville they had posted in the recruitment chat because at the time I think it still works like this as well where you can just go into various discords if you're a player and then there's like a recruitment section where teams will post like what type of players they're looking for, and Maryville in particular posted that they were giving out full rides with pictures of their facility and they're hosting tryouts on this day. And so then I thought to myself like I'm really confident that I can go pro, but I think that getting in to a degree that for free and then getting out when I was 22 was probably a wiser decision because professional esports and really any professional sport is very, very volatile, and anything that can happen that could ruin your career and inhibit your ability to play. So I'm glad I made that decision because I did. I'm in this position now, and I'm very, very fortunate to be in the position that I am now. So I'm very happy that I made that decision, and I've met like a lot of really, really cool people and established a lot of connections in the collegiate space, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. So that's kind of how I ended up, and all the other stuff that happened on Maryville is just kind of me playing, and then eventually I transitioned to coaching after I graduated because I had to be an adult. And then I got a job, and I didn't have time to play anymore. So
Shucks. Being an
yeah,
adult, man,
yeah,
I hate it when that happens.
yeah.
So
And
speaking of, well, go ahead.
just I was just gonna say, as you get older, you get interested in more things as well.
Yeah.
Like you can't just sit there and play a game for 12 hours a day anymore. Like I can't eat terribly anymore. I feel awful. I have to exercise. I have to have a good diet, like that type of thing. So
Yeah. Yep. No more hapless or hazardous activities, I suppose, for any of us
yeah,
old people anymore.
yes, old people.
Uh,
Yeah,
I say, knowing that the two of us are basically the exact same age, like
yeah,
9 days apart.
yeah.
So I guess you talked about right about becoming kind of that coach and stepping into that role. What does it mean to be a head coach situated in the program and to you? Like, how do you view your own role?
Yeah, so I take a lot of pride in my players and the team. I think that the role that a coach takes is completely contingent on the team itself, the program, and the level of play that you're at. Whenever I coach players that are below like tier two, tier one, there's a lot of stuff that I can critique and help them with. But as players get better and better, it's my philosophy that your role as a coach is not so much to teach your players the game anymore, but to make sure that they're on the same page or the same page and that everybody has strong interpersonal skills and they're doing what they need to do. There has to be some form of discipline within any type of competitive environment. And I think esports players lack a lot of that because again, they didn't have to like you look at a football environment compared to an esports one with teams like the football coach will just make you run 500 laps for showing up late for 2 minutes 3 days in a row and you'll never play I mean people who are in traditional sports understand, whereas in esports like you could have someone show up 30 minutes late because they were ordering food or something. Like it's a completely different environment. And I think that as a coach, it's really important that you come in and then you institute discipline onto your players so they understand that we need to show up on time, we need to be respectful to other people, and we need to make all of our practices count as well. I think that's like a big one. Like a lot of times in esports across a variety of games, people will just if the competition isn't good enough, if they're not feeling well that day or whatever the excuse is, they'll just troll the entire block away. And that's like a big waste of time that you could be improving while another team is improving, while your competition is improving and you're not. So there's like a bunch of instances in that I think is a coach's responsibility to make sure that everybody's getting better, everybody wants to win more than all the other teams, and that you're all on the same page. And that's kind of like what I like to preach with my teams. So
And to be clear, right, you are a full-time employee only coaching one team, right, with the program. You're not obviously you mentioned you have other roles as they come up with the program, but you're not like in a one-man operation overseeing like 8 different teams all at once and managing a facility and all of that, right?
no, thankfully, ISU has invested a lot into our program, and we're very fortunate to have five full-time staff members. So we have two other head coaches, TJ and Zach, and they handle Rocket League and Overwatch, or sorry, Rocket League and League of
What
Legends respectively.
they handle your
And then,
game for you.
yeah, no thanks. Oh man, we would have lost so fast if they were. No, no. I love TJ and Zach, but and then we have Jack, who's our program manager, and then Jack just manages like the facility and does a bunch of the technical stuff, and so very grateful to Jack as well. And then David, obviously our director, who's a big part of why any of this is possible or why any of us are here. So, um, yeah, I really just appreciate everybody that's involved and all the work that they put in.
So you were talking a little bit kind of about that philosophy, instilling that discipline, those sorts of things. Sounds like you're coming at this from a very traditional sports perspective. Do you have any inspiration that you're pulling from to help contextualize kind of some of the decisions that you're making as you're coaching your
Yeah.
teams?
So I think I was someone who struggled a lot with a variety of things whenever I was growing up. Like in my teenage years, especially my late teenage years were probably the hardest years of my life. And then I came to discover through exercise and mental and physical discipline that a lot of the hardships that you go through in life, regardless of what it is, but in the context of competitive sports, esports, or physical sports, whatever it may be, if you have discipline, it teaches you how to deal with any type of inconvenience that comes your way and to overcome it and then learn from it. Because you need to see failure and obstacles as opportunities to learn and get better, and not as setbacks, and not take it as um, a massive just frustration that prevents you from doing anything. So yeah, I don't want to sound too cheesy, but I think again, discipline is just like really, really important, and I think that it is critical to any type of competitive environment that you have at least some form of it in some way.
And you've talked about that discipline. Let's start getting into the mechanics, kind of what this starts to look like. And let's take a look at last year, right? Maybe let's not worry as much about this year. Take a look at last year, what of course your team ends up going on in the end of the spring to end up winning 4 different national titles across the board for Overwatch, and pretty much becoming number one, beating everybody, right?
Yep.
Um, what what does it look like in the fall semester, like practice schedule, match schedule, those sorts of things? And then in the spring, where you're juggling all of those different leagues at the same time.
Yeah. So for fall, currently it's looking pretty good. We have not played against Northwood or Fisher yet. We just haven't ran into them in bracket, and they never scrim. So there's that. We beat Maryville 2 days ago, 3-1, and then Winthrop we beat 3-2 in like a very, very close reverse sweep. I believe it was a reverse sweep. Um, Memory's failing me, but it was very, very close series. But we were able to pull out the win on them as well, which is a very good sign because I think Winthrop is by far our biggest competition. And just judging how scrims are going and how our matches are going versus them, they will continue to be very competitive through the entire semester, even in spring, I imagine as well. So we'll have to keep our eyes out for them. As far as I know, Maryville and Northwood don't scrim. I'm not really sure on what their plan is as a team. But we could always lose to them, so it's important that we don't have an ego and that everything is losable. But I would say any schools that aren't Maryville, Northwood, Fisher, or Winthrop, our players are just more experienced, and I think that we just have a general competitive edge against them. Obviously, we could still lose, and we're going to try treat the matches seriously. But as far from my perspective, I'm particularly planning for those 4 to 5 schools. Um, so far so good. Like I said, we haven't lost yet, and we're going to continue to have our reign of dominance going forward into spring as well. But yeah, so far so good.
So, like week to week, what's the average schedule look like right
Oh
now?
yeah.
Like,
So currently we have the way our university works is that we have weekly requirements that we need out of our players, essentially like X amount of time that they have to put into the game or to Redbird specific varsity practices. And then I get to determine what that is on a minimum number and a maximum number. Currently, it's lower than what it would be in spring, but we're going to start ramping up our time together as homecoming approaches. I also want to give my players time to compete on their OWCS teams and their Face It teams because that's really important to them. And I also think that's important for them to get different perspectives from different teams and different strategies and all that, so that when we come together, we can kind of make this amalgamation of strategies and success. And it's really, really helps when one player can say, well, my team tried this and it worked really well, and my team tried this, and yada, 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 and all that other stuff. So um, basically the plan is that as homecoming starts approaching closer and as other tournaments start approaching closer, we'll ramp up the practice. And I think that's what gives us the best edge over all the other teams, is that we want to win the most. And so because we want to win the most, we practice the most as a team. I don't think any other school right now, any of the top schools in collegiate esports, that is, they just don't scrim. I don't know why, but they just don't. They
busy
don't
playing
care,
with
I
their
guess.
OWCS
Yeah, I
rosters?
mean,
I
I
don't
guess
know.
that's
I
why.
mean,
I guess that's got why you guys are second and third. I
dang,
guess
shots already
second,
fired.
third, fourth. Yeah,
And we're not even into the homecoming season yet.
yeah.
Um, all right. Well, what does that ramp up look like, right? Because like if you had to give a number, obviously like I'm not looking for exacts, right? But if you had to give a number, how much practice would you say the team's putting in now versus as you start getting closer to say homecoming and then, again in the spring, what does that kind of ramp up to?
Yeah, so it's contingent on my confidence in the team, of how our practices are looking and how I see our improvement going, and just like what am I seeing week to week from the players essentially in our performance in scrims and in matches. So again, I have full discretion to disclose or to determine what the amount of requirement for each week is, and so it kind of just depends on how we're doing. But I will say that I do tend to put it towards the upper echelon of multiple double blocks per week, um, whenever we're in spring, and then also when we're very close to important tournaments as well. So we practice a lot in preparation for other teams and just make sure that we're prepared.
In order to be the best, you have to make sure that you're performing at your best. Sometimes you need a little extra help to get all the way there. I know I reach for my energy drink of choice anytime I know I need to lock in. But recently, I've been reaching for something a little bit different. Neuroptima's flow state isn't just another quick energy fix. It's designed to help you focus longer, stay sharp, and actually feel better, and does it by combining nearly 5 times the nootropics of traditional energy supplements with both instant and delayed release caffeine to fuel your brain and body. It's like energy redefined, basically. Smarter, cleaner, and built to keep you going for longer with game changing cognitive enhancement. If you're still doubting those energy drinks, it might be time to rethink what you're doing to stay on top of your game. Recently, Neuroptima was kind enough to send me their raspberry lemonade flow state, and I've got to say, it's the real deal. You can try it for yourself by going to neuroptima.gg and using code CEN for 10% off your order. Thanks so much to Neuroptima for supporting this episode of Torchbearers. Now, let's return to our conversation with Parker. Sure. So, you've talked a lot about obviously you setting the schedule, but I imagine a lot of other institutions, sometimes it's difficult to get that player buy-in. Why are your players bought into doing it with you and rallying around this? Especially in like last year's roster, right? What was it that kind of kept bringing them together? And how did you maintain that buy-in and that relationship with your players over the course of the year?
So I made sure, and for those who don't know, for some more context, I had to recruit a full fresh roster in for spring of 2024. um, because we pretty much didn't have a roster at all after fall of 2023. And so whenever I was recruiting, the most important thing to me was obviously the player's skill is important, but I would put that number two to how much does this player want to win and how much do they care? Because I will always take a worse player that is more bought in and invested into the team and into getting better than a better player who is checked out, doesn't play the game, and doesn't care. And I think that we're seeing that across like collegiate in general. Like I'm not going to say anybody in specific, but I can see a lot of players and high level collegiate who don't care, who have completely checked out, who never play the game, and they just show up for matches and maybe show up for the 1 to 2 scrims that they do a month. And that's something that I wanted to avoid. And I think that's why we've been so successful is again, my team wants to win the most. I want to win the most, and we care the most. So we practice the most and we put in the most effort, and it reflects in our performance. Um, and then on top of that, the fact that we have players that have really bought in and subscribe to our culture and what we're trying to build, I think that goes a long way as well. There's like a sense of pride with our players now where um, even if I was gone, I would be confident that they would still want to be with ISU or would like to play with ISU. And just, I mean, I'm getting messages all the time and recognition all the time from students who are looking to go into collegiate for ISU just because of our success in Overwatch. And so I think that that's a mark of some of the success that we've had, that it's not only like in the state compared to like a football team, but like we have an international reach that is just something that's unheard of in traditional sports. So
Yeah, absolutely. And in my head, right? If I'm sitting there trying to have my players who aren't scholarshiped, right? So very
mhm.
different even world at all. But if
Yeah,
I was to try to say, all right, you've got to practice 10 hours a week, you got to do all these other things, there probably is going to be some pushback to
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Uh, do you experience a lot of that pushback in terms of like, oh man, do we have to?
Yeah, I mean,
And how do you
constantly like
manage that?
I'm dealing with like 18, 19, 20-year-olds like,
Yeah.
they're going to push back against stuff that they don't like. And I think most of the team, all of the team really most of the time. There is some pushback from individual players here and then about various things for a variety of reasons, but especially at the start of the first semester, it was like a lot to get them to accept our new system, because we have a returning player, well, two returning players now with Lethal and Luke, and so they had to be introduced into the new systems that we developed in spring or of yeah, in spring of 2024. And I guess we started it really in fall of 2023, but I didn't get to implement it until I actually got my full fresh team. Um, and so I'm not going to go into those systems. Obviously, I don't want to give anybody any sort of ideas or anything. Um, but I think, yeah, so the way that you have to deal with it essentially is like, if you are in a situation like your situation where your players aren't scholarshiped, you just have to assess how badly do your players want to win, and then that kind of develops your strategy as a coach, is what's the best way to help these players. Because if your players aren't getting scholarshiped and they're just playing for fun, just make sure that they have the best time possible and that everybody's having a great time, everybody's coming together every week and like holding each other accountable, and like at least honor the commitment that you made with each other to at least show up to the matches or the scrims and just try to have fun with it. But if you have a competitive team, it's a much different and more brass conversation of, you can tell by someone's actions how badly they want to win and not their words, because the things that they do, how much they play the game, how much they ask questions, how much they want to VOD or they contribute to a VOD, like stuff like that. Like, I could very, very easily say, like, a player could come up to me and say that I want to win, and then I check their profile and they have 50 games played in 3 months. So that tells me, like, you don't actually want to win. Like, you just say that, you're not about it. And that kind of determines how I go about approaching the specific student. If I'm able to gauge that they don't actually care and that they're just there to play for fun, I just approach coaching them differently, because at the end of the day, they're not a better off or a worse person for wanting to play for fun. Like, it's a video game after all. It's just a different approach. You can't take it too seriously if nobody actually wants to win or actually is invested. It's just a different approach. So
And you're bringing everyone kind of together all at once, right? Instead of catering your mentality to the players you have, you're going out to seek for the players that are going to be driven, that are going to be passionate, and do want to actually put in the hours to win in order to be successful and be a part of this program.
yeah, absolutely. And there is like a sense of like they will have to conform to our general culture and idea. And whenever I recruit them, like, this is something that I have in my mind, like, is this player going to be a good fit for the team? And um, they will to some degree have to, again, confide with what we're doing, but um, it's not that big of an ask whenever you get players who are invested in just winning in general. Like, if they see that what you're doing is for the betterment of the team and for the greater good, most of the time there won't be pushback, but sometimes, like, it's inevitable that you're going to have confrontations with your players. And as a coach, it's just important that sometimes you have to be the bad guy for the betterment of the team. You just have to be. But it's also important as well to acknowledge whenever you mess up and to walk things back that are unreasonable or egregious or whatever the reasoning may be. Maybe it was an oversight on your end or the department's, and sometimes mistakes happen. And I think part of being a good coach as well is acknowledging when you make those mistakes and be willing to walk stuff back as well.
So, how about that? Can you give me an example of like a time, maybe at some point last year, where you made a mistake or a
Oh yeah,
miscalculation?
yeah. So I think my biggest um, fault last year was communication. It was a really, really big struggle for me to be able to discern what information I was receiving from the administrative side that would eventually carry on to the players. Anytime the school or my director would say something in particular, I would have a struggle, or anything that we would talk about as staff in general. It was hard to discern, like, do the players need to know this, yes or no, for various reasons. And so sometimes I just wouldn't share any information at all with the players, with information that I could have, and that would make them feel better, even though they didn't need to know it per se. Like, nothing would have changed if they didn't know it, but the fact that, like, it makes them feel better and more in the loop and more engaged with us if they do know what's going on with certain operations. So um, I'm still getting better at it. I'm not perfect like everybody else, but I think I've gotten a lot better at communicating important information and not disclosing the proper information as well. But again, um, try to get 1% better every day, and yeah, I think it's gotten a lot better and will continue to do so.
And I feel like that's, I mean, what you're stepping into the program, what this is, I mean, this would be year 2 for you, right? Or
Um,
is it year 3?
yeah, it's your. So I was officially brought in August of 2023.
So yeah, this is year 2 basically
Yeah,
for you, and probably anyone can, relate to that, like adjusting in. Okay, what do I need to keep sending down the line? What can I get away with not, saying, or what don't they need to know? Maybe is the other side of it, right? Because there's a chance you would go a little too far
yeah.
in that way.
Like I don't need to give my
Um,
players every single detail on like
right,
the specifics of a tournament. Like they don't need to know the address if I'm the one responsible for taking them there, for example.
right.
Like if they ask for it, I can send it to them, or I can make it in like the announcement post of general information. But it's not something that like I need to really hammer home, right? It's not like a scrim schedule or something like that. Um, you know,
So let's shift back again. Think about last spring. Uh, you want to talk about May Madness? I think you all experienced May Madness,
May
going
Madness.
from NACE finals to the May Madness tournament, back to back weeks. You win 2 titles there, and then you've got what, maybe a couple days before the OWCC finals kick off.
Yep.
What was that like? Because that's got to be a completely different environment when you're talking about championship level prep, like 4 weeks in a row. How are you managing that with players while they're in classes and while exams are about to come up?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of the credit has to go to the players. Their ability to just travel really, really consistently like that and be able to keep it together while balancing their school and their exams and getting good grades. So I never in my time as a collegiate player had to travel that much while having to be in school full time as well. So I mean, shout out to the players as always. Like they're the whole reason why we're even here and the reason for our success in general. But um, can't really speak too much about their specific strategies on that because I'm not them. But as far from my perspective, yeah, like we went to Florida on like the 27th, 27th, the 27th and 28th of April, and then 2 weeks later, I believe we were in Dallas from like the 14th to the 23rd, and then a week after that we had ABC, and like the end of like the last week of May, I think, into June or something like that. But I mean, realistically, the preparation was just like it was only based on how badly we wanted to win again and how much we were learning from our matches. Like I remember Simon, our former flex support, and one of the interviews that he gave on stage, he talked about how I believe it was at CECC in Dallas as well. He talked about how we wanted to win more than other teams, and that's what like carried us. And I think that's like really, really the factor. Like there's not a lot of time to prepare from each game in between, and because of those classes and because of all the constant traveling, like other people have other responsibilities to take care of, including myself, and it's like how much can we learn from each of these matches essentially, and how much more do we care about when how much more effort and work are we going to put in. And I think that's like what really carried us over, and also our mental fortitude. There was never a doubt in my mind that we weren't going to win even when we were losers bracket, because I just like I could tell by the way that the enemy team played that any time that we got an advantage, I could tell that they would get nervous and that we were just mentally stronger in the series and under pressure. My players, like even our match versus Winthrop, like we were down 0-2 in our NACE match 2 days ago, and it was on push on map 3, and we were down like 90, 94 or something on New Queen Street to 0, and then we come back and win the map in like 3 minutes. Like my players never give up.
And that's
It's
this
always
year.
winnable. Yeah, that was
That
that
was
was
like
like 2 days ago. Yeah, that was 2 days ago. Like it's always winnable.
right.
Yeah.
And it takes a different kind of mentality, right? And a
Yeah,
different kind
exactly.
of
Discipline. That's
environment
where
you're going.
discipline comes from. It
Discipline.
carries over into stuff like that. If you have discipline, you understand that no matter what the sake of the game is, it's always winnable and that you never want to give up. So,
So I guess my next question too, you're talking a little bit about nerves from the other team and how this team was a little bit more stable. But after you win the first one, after you win NACE, right, at the
yeah.
end of April, you're heading into these next couple tournaments and championships. Do they feel to the team more like you're defending a title or that you're going out to go win another one and tack it onto the resume? What does it
Uh,
feel like to you all?
yeah, we just feel like we're going out to win another win and tack it onto the resume. Like we after we won Nace, I think that's when it started to get in everybody's head that we realistically like well, we always knew that we could win everything, but this was the first time that it was actualized. Like we have this idea and this goal in mind, and then when it manifests itself into reality, it's the first of four that we're going for, and so it becomes more real. And so now that we know, like, okay, let's keep this momentum and keep going and going and going. And then I remember the first time that we had lost to Maryville in a series at all was in ABC, and it was the week right when we had gotten home, and I got extremely sick after CECC, like extremely sick. I had to be wheelchaired off of the plane, and I was bedridden for like 3 or 4 days right afterwards. And then that following Friday, I believe it was, we had our match against Maryville, and we had lost it. But I know that we only lost it because I wasn't there. And also, we didn't have any time to scrim beforehand because the players had to catch up on all their exams because we just traveled for 5 days. So, like, even in our losses like that, I still knew that we were going to win in losers bracket because once we had the time to prepare, once I was able to be back in the team environment and make sure everything was running smoothly and everybody's mentalities were good and all this other stuff, it was. I mean, you saw the finals. It was 4-2, and Lethal just went absolutely nuclear on the last map. I remember watching his shot. I remember watching his shot with another one of my players, or his POV, towards the end of the series in the last map. This guy didn't miss a shot for like 4 minutes on Sojourn. Like so insane. I was like, I can't lose with this guy.
Uh,
He's unreal. If Dennis wants to win, we're gonna win. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
so, wanting to win,
Yeah.
is that the goal this year? 4 for 4 again,
Yes, sir.
or are you planning on playing and everything again?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I imagine last year, you're really pushing the players. The players want to be there too. How are you making sure that you don't cross the line into burnout territory? Because I feel
Uh
like, especially for your team, right? Obviously, like, your players probably have a higher tolerance given by the fact that they want to be there, they want to win. Those are the people you're recruiting. But
yeah.
there's got to be a line somewhere. How do you make sure you're not pushing past that?
Yeah, of course. So there's two things with burnout. The first is I think burnout comes from when you're pushing something really hard and you don't see results. I think that's when burnout comes the quickest. And the second thing is the reason that I have our schedule lighter right now is so my players don't get burnt out in general. Because I think burnout can also come from just overindulging at a specific task and neglecting your other responsibilities for a prolonged period of time. Obviously, different people have different thresholds, and it can come sooner if you're not seeing success. However, I do acknowledge that again, it just comes from overindulging in something without catering to other aspects of your life. So that's why right now we are not scrimming or practicing as much as we normally would in season. And as we get closer to the important matches, we will ramp it up. And I've told my players that so they have time. I told them like 2 or 3 months in advance. Like we literally, and God bless my staff too. My staff is incredible between like Aeroplane and Goose and Sod and just everybody involved that helps run the management of Overwatch here. Like we have our entire semester on our calendar. Like every single scrim that we have scheduled, every match, every team workout, literally everything that we're doing, the players can look in 3, 4, 5 months in advance and see that we have this, and this day. Um, and so because of that, it helps the players prepare more so they won't get burnt out whenever the important stuff comes up.
Picking the right competition for your program can be pretty challenging, but our sponsors at Playfly College Esports offer more than just competitive leagues. In addition to premier competitions for all levels of play, they offer scholarship prizing, e commerce solutions, marketing support, and more to over 700 colleges in North America. Watch your favorite games streamed live on their Twitch channel at twitch.tv/playflygg and email esports@playfly.com to elevate your collegiate esports experience. Thanks so much to Playfly College Esports for their support of this episode of Torchbearers. Now, back to our conversation with Parker. Yeah, that's definitely fair. It must be nice to have that level of detail pinned down for any student, especially.
Yeah.
But then there's another side of this, right? Where if you tell your players, hey, don't do as much this week, how do you make sure they actually like go do something else? Because I feel like, half of these folks, they're here to play video games, right? They're here to play esports. This is the passion. This is the game they're passionate about. They just want to play and they want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
How are you
Hey,
making
man.
sure, like,
If you
how
want to
are you
keep going,
preventing
keep
that?
going. Yeah. I mean, if you want
Well,
to keep going, keep going. Like a player, I've never ever in my life seen a player that's like grinding in off season, burnout during season because they grinded in off season. I've never personally seen it. It might have happened. It might still happen, but it hasn't been a problem for us. And like, if I see Luke boot up Overwatch, get his 50 games in on every role with an 80% win rate, and just be top 10 on 10 accounts on every different role, like, go for it, bro. But
fair
I
enough.
like, yeah, and it's kind of like if your players are consistently performing in scrims and performing in matches as well, I feel like to me they also earn a degree of like breaks, I guess, or like mini off times where like I'm not gonna get stressed if my team is owning in scrims and in matches, and then I see them playing deadlock. Like, you know what, guys, you earned. Enjoy your deadlock. All right. But if we're getting dominated in scrims and we're not performing, that's when I would start getting stressed and like it would I would assess like, guys, do we actually care about winning? Like, do you guys want to win? Because if you do want to win, you're not gonna be on deadlock when we're getting dominated.
Right.
So, but when the grass is green, the sky is blue, everything's great, we're winning everything. Go play some deadlock, bro. Go. Why not?
Why
Not
not?
too much.
Go.
Not too much though. We don't want to
Right.
fall behind the curve, but again, like some balance is important. So
So, do you feel like now, as a coach, do you have a better sense of balance compared to your time as a player at Maryville? Or how has that experience that you had helped inform kind of what you're bringing to the Redbird squad?
yeah, so I do have a balance. Obviously, I have to balance my varsity operations and the coaching there with the administrative stuff. But outside of my personal life, I exercise. I have my own hobbies that I like. I like playing other games too. I really like Baldur's Gate, Elden Ring, the Spider-Man games. So I'll play those every once in a while whenever I have time. There'll be streaks of days where I just don't have time to play anything because I'll work all day and then I'll get back from the gym. And then I'm also getting my MBA right now as well. So I have class some nights and it's just some days I just don't have time. But whenever I do, similar to the players, if we're performing well, then I'll do something that I like too. Um, so I don't know, it just kind of depends on the person and how you go about timing it and recognizing when it's appropriate, when it's not. And it's just like a discipline thing as well. So
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, again, everyone's got their threshold, right? As you
yeah.
said a little bit ago, and trying to find that and cater that for each individual person is something you've got to figure out, right?
Hmm.
And it's got to be easier when you're doing it for what, 6, 7 person roster plus your staff, uh,
Yeah.
compared to maybe me being one person for a 50 student program, right? That's
Yeah.
a little different.
Yeah.
But
I would
um,
definitely have a different strategy in your position.
what do
But
you think that strategy would be then? Because there's a lot of
um,
other people out there like me, right? I'm not
yeah.
the only one.
Yeah, so I would say I recognize that majority of varsity program, esports programs in general at a lot of colleges or even high schools, they aren't as fortunate as we are to have the resources that we do. And if I was in that situation, it would be my goal more so than anything to make sure that the students, I mean, this is already kind of the case, but I think it's really important that um, the students have a memorable and enjoyable time while they're at your school and doing what they're doing. Like, you want the student to be able to look back on their time at your program and remember it fondly and recommend it to other people. Like for me at Maryville, those 4 years I will always cherish for the rest of my life, and they built me up and developed me into the person that I am today. And that's an experience that I wouldn't trade for the world, all the positives and the negatives, because they both contributed to my growth. And so whether I went to Maryville or I went to Fisher, I went to Winthrop, I would have wanted to feel that same kind of way. So even if I wasn't a competitive player or always at the top end of like the varsity competitions, as a club player or at any college or high school, really, like if I was in a position that I am now, or in your position rather, I would just try to make sure that all the students have a strong, memorable experience. And how you go about doing that is contingent on a bunch of different things, like the resources that you have, the area that you're located in, who your partners are, who you can work with, and just the people that you have involved. If your school's really bought into the program, like there's so many different things. I could write a book on it and how you could build it up, but like it it really
There's
just
always
kind
the
of
master's
depends.
thesis, Parker.
Yeah, yeah. That might be what my thesis is on, honestly. Good idea. But yeah,
Hey,
I just
right there with you.
underlining bullet point, students have a good experience. That's what
Absolutely.
matters. And how you go about doing that is just going to depend on you.
I mean, there's going to be some students that want the social experience. There's going to be some students that
Exactly.
want the
Yeah.
competitive experience. There's going to be some students that want the career experience, right?
Yeah.
And being able to translate those skills. Obviously, that's what we're trying to do, and trying to find the way to get every student involved is just that much more challenging.
Yeah.
We're going to start winding down a little bit in this. But we do have one question we like to ask at the end here for all of our guests. If you could snap your finger and change one thing about collegiate esports, what would it be?
Um, I would want it to be seen at the same level as traditional sports. So to go further into that, I would want administrative members of collegiate programs to acknowledge and to invest in esports the way that they do in their traditional athletics, because you can make, and it's not just about the money, but this is just an example, but you can be very terrible at football or basketball or soccer or baseball or something and still get millions of dollars and lose millions of dollars every year at a university. um, but because it, as general as seen, it's more popular, I suppose, amongst common, like the common people, and esports is growing. But again, if I could just snap my finger and I could make them the same, I would. And that, like if we could fill esports arenas all the time with kids and we could generate a bunch of revenue and recognition for the school in the same way, I would want that, because like from my perspective, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter per se, on how we do and the things that we do in our community, but we are definitely not seen in the same light as the sports teams are, which makes what we do much more important. Like it's just really important that we're always striving to be better, so we can prove to administrators and just everybody in general that esports is a serious field that um, has strong career paths that can foster development of youth, and just it's something that people can really like actually take seriously. That you can turn a hobby into a career. I think that's everybody's dream. So
I mean, you can do that in every other field. Why not here too, right?
yeah, exactly.
Um, and I guess the other thing too, right? That I think about is I think it's only a matter of time. I
Yeah.
think as you start seeing people that are a little bit more technology minded come into leadership positions, I think more people will get it in the long run, but it's going to take getting there for sure.
Hmm.
And I think all of us are laying the groundwork to do exactly that.
Yeah.
Is there one
Hopefully.
thing? Is there one thing you do to try to move the needle that way? Like
Um. Well, yeah.
what's the
Eventually.
initiative?
Yeah. So I just want to keep doing my thing. Um. Eventually I'll move on to do something else where I can help more students in the collegiate space or even the pro space. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do or what I'm looking to do quite yet, but um, definitely I want to get to a bigger scale eventually, to where I'm not just helping out Overwatch, but entire like programs or the field or tournaments or something. I don't know, just something like larger scale whenever I get more experience. And when I finish my degree and all this other stuff, I'm just, moving up the chain so I can help more people and really like push collegiate esports or just esports in general towards a mainstream audience. And um, yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
Well, let's hope you're able to do that as
Yeah,
we move on.
I hope.
Along those lines, well, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just
Last
gonna
thing.
say, I hope I can be grandpa watching my son at the Super Bowl, my grandson or granddaughter, whoever it may be, at the Super Bowl for esports.
There we go.
Yeah, and I could be on my deathbed saying that I helped build that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
that'd be
go.
cool.
Uh, last thing here, any other closing thoughts, shout outs you want to give? Floor's now yours. Whatever you want to say here.
Yeah, so shout outs and appreciation to all of my players. I said this earlier, but because of them, that's why we're here and that's why we're so successful. It all starts with the players. And also the school for all the resources that they've been able to provide us. And David, Jack, Zach, TJ, Don, LJ, our president, Harhuli as well, like everybody that's just supported us and that's given us the resources necessary in order to help us procure this space and like this office space and our facility and all of our scholarships and everything. I'm super super grateful to them and all of that. Also to Maryville and to Dan and to Shipley and to Andrew and just everybody over there that helped provide me with that opportunity to get me my degree as well. I think without them I wouldn't be here. So and also all of my former teammates and just everybody that's ever been a part of my life in esports. I really, really appreciate, and it's developed me into the person I am today. And I, I'm still really good friends with people all around the world that I met at Maryville, and that I'm sure I'll continue to make friends while I'm here. But yeah, I think that's also my family, my mom, my grandma, grandpa, all them. So
Yeah, good deal. I think a lot of us feel a very similar way, right?
yeah,
Everything has led to this moment, and now it's only a matter of what comes next. Parker, thanks
yeah,
so much for
yeah.
joining us here on Torchbearers.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
You just listened to Torchbearers by College Esports News. Thanks again to Parker Lyte Lewis for sitting down with us for this episode. Before we go, we want to thank our sponsors one more time. Playfly College Esports offers premier competitions for all levels of play, scholarship prizing, e-commerce solutions, marketing support, and more to over 700 colleges in North America. Watch your favorite games streamed live on their Twitch channel at twitch.tv/playflygg and email esports@playfly.com to elevate your college esports experience. And real quick, Neuroptima's flow state is redefining what energy and focus feel like. Flow state isn't your typical energy fix and isn't pumping you full of just sugar and caffeine. Flow state combines ingredients like alpha GPC, new LVL, and huperzine A to boost focus, mental clarity, and even your memory and learning. It's also designed to keep you in the zone for longer with both instant and delayed release caffeine to give you real, sustained energy that fuels both your body and mind. If you're looking for real mental clarity and performance that lasts, check out Neuroptima's Flow State. Your brain will thank you. You can use code CEN at checkout for 10% off your order over on Neuroptima's website, neuroptima.gg. Thanks once again to Playfly and Neuroptima for their support of Torchbearers and CEN. For this episode, I was your host, Kenneth Christina. Jared Vanderweel is our project manager. Ashton Lewis is our graphic designer. V. Tran is our editor. Sheridan Shea helped record this episode. And Derek Santiago is creative director of CEN. Be sure to follow us on X, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram to stay up to date on all things college esports. And check out our website at collegeesportsnews.org. Thanks for listening, and keep carrying the flame.